we'll call it visited network. And IPv4 and IPv6 actually differ in how the care of address is allocated. In IPv4 or mobile IPv4, what we have is we've got foreign agents, which are routers basically in the foreign network, which when a mobile node actually attaches to that router, only then it will get that IP address. Whereas in IPv6, we've come across address auto configuration technique. So that way, a mobile node does not require this foreign agent. It can actually configure that address itself through basically stateful or stateless auto configuration, right? So that's one improvement that you see, that you don't need this added foreign agent or added router to be in the path between the mobile node and correspondent node. Secondly, when you've got a peer or correspondent node that wants to communicate with the mobile node, all the traffic has to be passed through the home network, right? So for instance, if you've got a large distance from this home network and the visited network, you will have that long delays. For like real-time applications, this will lead to undesirable results, right? So this is, yes. Yeah.
What if that mobile node moves to the coverage area of another router?
Another, sorry?
Third router.
Another one. Actually, what happens in mobile IP, that's why I said that I hope you all know a bit about it. When a mobile node, whenever it moves, it actually has to register this new care of address with the home agent. Okay? So this home agent is keeping the binding of the current care of address that a mobile node has, and its permanent or permanent, which is a home address, right? So whenever, if for instance a mobile node is here and then it moves again to some other place, then it will actually have to register again with the home agent by sending the binding update message to it. So every time it moves, it has to send that binding update for the registration to take place. Now, so the problem here is that when a correspondent node wants to communicate with the mobile node, every time it has to send the package to its home network and there then actually forward it or tunnel to its current location in mobile IPv4. Now in V6, we have actually we've got a better technique, or a mode is defined, an additional mode, which is called route optimization mode. We have actually come across something called, or we have come across in a previous talk, something called source routing, right? In source routing, you actually, what you're doing is you're actually defining two additional headers, extension headers, and appending them with the IPv6 header, and those headers actually are what contain the home address of that of the mobile node. So basically, correspondent node here now keeps the binding as well. So in addition to the home agent, we've got a binding in the correspondent node. So once this binding is there, this correspondent node can directly communicate with the mobile node, and whenever the mobile node moves, it registers instead. It has to register with the home agent, but additionally it also registers with the correspondent node. So this way, the correspondent node can directly communicate with the mobile node, and the destination or the headers that we use for doing this or having this sort of source routing is our home address destination options header and type 2 routing header. Now these two headers, through them, we actually, what we're doing is we're making the whole triangular routing problem, we're actually removing that, and we're going a direct route between the correspondent node and mobile node. Another thing, again, the technical details have been discussed, so I'm going to just briefly talk about them, is neighbor or router discovery. On the link that a mobile node is attached to, it can actually know the other routers or other hosts that are actually attached to the same link. So that way, especially in scenarios where you've got micro mobility or small scale mobility, this is again a very efficient way, or you don't have to go all across the whole domain or whole globally to actually access the mobile node. Second issue that I'm going to discuss is multi-homing. Okay, multi-homing is actually a procedure by which an entity or a host is attached to the internet by multiple paths, right? So this is a case of course in mobile IPv6 or not talking about mobile IPv6, but IPv6. This is a benefit as compared to IPv4 because you've got larger address space. So we talked about home appliances and different entities. You can have actually a host which has multiple interfaces, and on each interface you can have a separate IP address configured. So if you have that kind of situation, what you can do is actually you can use those, or take that as a leverage and use those multiple paths to have ubiquitous access or anytime, anywhere access. So if you've got multiple links to the internet, you can always have that support that you can switch between those links, or you can switch between those paths freely. So if you've gone to a space where you're connected to one interface and you're going to another place where you don't have connectivity through that, so you can always switch to another interface as long as you've got that IP address on that. Secondly, when you have multiple paths, you also have the capability of quickly detecting failures on a certain path and recovering from them. Within IETF, there's a lot of work being done in this area. For instance, there's a progress on a protocol called SHIM-6. Now, SHIM-6 is actually a multi-homing protocol that takes the main crux of IPv6 and puts that into multi-homing. So through that, what happens is you've got upper layer session being, upper layer session does not break when you are switching from one path to another. So it makes that upper layer or transport layer connections transparent to the network layer switch, right? So all these are actually benefits of multi-homing, and in IPv6, multi-homing is a bit more easier, you would say, or it's a more friendly environment for multi-homing than IPv4. And thirdly, the security improvements. Now, as mentioned earlier, IPsec for IPv6 is actually an integral or mandatory part, whereas for IPv4, we had that as an option. In IPv4, the time IPv4 came out, internet was considered quite friendly, so there was not a lot of thought given into having given into things like such as denial of service attack or man-in-the-middle attack. But as we have actually grown, and by the time IPv6 has come around, you have seen that there's a lot of security risks when you're communicating over the internet. So IPsec actually identifies or has two headers or extension headers. One is the authentication header, and the second is encapsulating security payload header. Now these two headers are used to make the communication, first of all, provide authenticity, have confidentiality and integrity. So through this IPsec, because it's mandatory, you're actually improving the security in IPv6 as compared to IPv4. And another technique normally used in IPv6 is the hop limit. We have actually, myself actually described what hop limit is. And how it can be leveraged in certain scenarios is that, for instance, if you've got a local or a single subnet, and you have ICMP packets, such as neighbor discovery packet, going through that. So the originator of that ICMP packet puts a hop limit to 255. Now, if a remote intruder wants to actually go into that subnet and send packets or ICMP packets into that subnet, obviously the hop limit will be decremented while it gets there, because it has to traverse the routers. In the case of this IPv6, because when the receiver actually shares the same subnet with the originator, you will know that the hop limit would remain 255. So in that way, it can actually detect that this has been some malicious kind of message or something. So that is another technique that is employed in IPv6 network. The last issue that I'm going to actually go over is routing. Already crux of it has been actually described by yourself, that you've got fragmentation at endpoints as opposed to IPv4 when you have fragmentation at the router. Now what happens is, when you, in IPv4 case, a lot of times your datagrams have to be handled, many datagrams have to be handled, and when you have got fragmentation in the router, your processing gets quite lengthy, or at times, you know, the communication disrupts. So in this way, you're actually the number of datagrams that have to be handled by the router per unit time is increased by employing fragmentation at endpoints. Secondly, as in the case with mobile IP route optimization mode, you've got source routing. So source actually puts leverage or has a leverage on how routing takes place from that source to the destination. Another capability is flow label. So you can actually prioritize flows in IPv6, and by prioritizing them, you can improve the quality of service. So this is an added feature that IPv4 didn't have, the IPv6 gives. And also, there's currently an effort by Cisco of developing, or actually they have come out with an RFC recently, of locator identifier separation protocol. What actually happens is your IP address in a traditional internet has two functions. First of all, it identifies a host, and secondly, also locates it. So in this, by Cisco, this Lisp protocol, you're actually separating these two namespaces. So you have a separate namespace for identification and a different one for location. So this way, again, you have an improvement in. Hello? One, yeah. Okay, you have actually again an improvement in routing. So it's been tested, and they've actually tested one of their Lisp protocols on a short network, and they have concluded that your routing becomes more efficient through this mechanism. So basically, the way forward, as a research topic or research field, this has got tremendous potential. We have already discussed that how IPv6 is going to certainly gain, is going to be a necessity. So why not actually prepare for it in the meantime or right now? And secondly, this region, Asia, there's a lot of studies that have concluded that Asia is going to adopt IPv6. Basically, Asia is going to be the first region adopting IPv6. There's a lot of basically history behind that, because when the classes of IPv4 were being given out, there was not much given to Asian region. And also this scarcity of experts. So especially in Pakistan, we don't have that many expertise in this area, or in IPv6, or in any of these research areas, multi-homing, mobility, or security in IPv6 or routing. So that is actually something that we can build on, and it's a big motivation for going with IPv6 and doing research on it. Thank you. Any questions? Question?